a book really has the possibility to transform a being. It happens all the time. But how do we allow that to happen these days?
Right. I mean, I think that's a great point of the nourishment. And I think on one end to the transformation, which I have experienced myself multiple times through reading, is you can't quite go in looking for it. I think there's this element here today of, like if you look at airport bestsellers, it's all about the transformation and optimization. So people go in looking for this kind of thing. And the problem is that you can try to, like if you read a lot of Ryan Holiday, then you'll take his books and you try to turn everything into to his version of Stoicism. Right. And so you kind of push everything through that lens. And then the other aspect of it is, you can read the books to transform your life, which is true. But if you go in trying to make it do that, that's when I find readers will get into hunting pithy sentences that can serve their worldview. I mean, you can find that in any book, right? Like you can go to Karl Marx Capital and find like, oh, here's this mindset thing. Like it's there if you want it, right? But that's not really what he is saying in that book, obviously, right? And the same thing with Edmund Burke, right? I mean, you do the same thing, but that's not really what he's quite saying. So, but if you go
10 killer mindset quotes.
It's
a great Twitter thread.
Yeah, get the Karl Marx Capital mindset, bro. Change the world, literally.
Buy my course on Gumroad.
Yeah, how to get your ideas spread. But if you go in just having that intimate conversation and realizing things might fly over your head, that's okay. That I find that engagement is what's going to pull you up into that world of ideas and pull you into that argument that's going on. And then in that moment when you're taking your time, that's where you might read things that really, really resonate, that can really move a needle for you on whatever that may be. It might be directly said in the book. It might not be directly said in the book, but there's something about it that suddenly grounds your world view a little bit, or opens you up to a worldview, or that shows you a different way. And it's something that you feel natural and right and almost instinctual to you that you can do. And it may take time to get there, but there's something about it that really, really resonates with you. And I think, versus just trying to versus sitting there being like, just give it to me. Just give me that idea. It isn't really doing it, right? Lift yourself up. And that sounds like a platitude, but you want to, you're in a room with the author, have the conversation with him, and then see how you feel after it or during it. Like that, I think that's going to lead to that beneficial insight.
So there are a couple different directions I want to take this, and we'll do whichever one first that you prefer. So first, I'd like to hear about books that you've read lately or throughout your life that have created that transformation for you, maybe that you weren't looking for. And then another book, because I read your email about this, that you read recently that it sounds like you were arguing with author the entire time, was Yuval Noah Harari. And he's a favorite punching bag as well. So, on one hand, you have the transformation book where it's like, wow, I got so much more than I expected from this. On the other hand, it's like, man, I just want to punch this book in the nose, I suppose. So whichever one you want to run with first, then we'll do the other one.
I'll go with the transformation book.
Okay.
And it's been a few different books. I could say that the more bigger transformations probably started happening, what I used to do in direct marketing, the copywriting, the kind of the scammy world. There was a couple of things that started kind of kicking me out of that. Oddly enough, The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler, Marlowe's character and that's the thing, I didn't expect him to be a wake-up call to me. But it's like, geez, this guy is just so, he's not an Eagle Scout, but he has his moral compass, and he's unapologetic about himself as much of as as a wise ass as he is, he's aware of his flaws, but he knows he's sensitive, not sensitive in the sense of crying or something, but he's sensitive to how people work. He's very choosy about who he decides to open up with, man or woman, and whatever the level of the relationship is. He's sensitive in that manner. That kind of moved me a little bit. And then it was of all people, there was a passage by Arthur Schopenhauer. I remember when I read that passage, I went on a walk for like hours.
Wow.
And it was about if you inherit money, it's not a curse. So when I was scrambling a lot in internet marketing, because my dad ran an automotive empire, and then I was working in it, and I thought my whole life that this is what I was going to do. And it sold, and then he died of cancer. And for whatever reason, I had this crazy idea that I had to beat his money mark. And that kind of led to this relatively unhealthy internal scramble. It was great because it provided a good work ethic and motivation. But I was really trying to beat this money mark. And I thought anything that he gifted to me was some sort of curse. And then I had to beat it. And it was a very unhealthy view of it. And when I was kind of getting out of this crazy world of internet marketing, and I read this thing by Arthur Schopenhauer if you can take your purpose, and if you have a gift of finances behind it, you can do great good in the world. Yeah. It's a very long passage, and I was like, oh my, and like the hair rose in my arms. And I read it over and over and over and over again because my mind, it's how it works. I can get stuck on something. And I just went for a walk. It was like a gray day out here in Denver, pretty cold. And I just walked for hours thinking on that passage. Becoming more recently, and I think a big shift that I didn't quite expect was Edmund Burke's The Reflections on the Revolution of France. So Edmund Burke I got really very curious on my worldview because I thought, I was like, okay, I figure I'm probably more conservative, but I've never looked at it. Right. I went atheist because after my dad passed, the priest said that $500,000 would get him into heaven. And I was like, come on.
What?
Doing
you take checks.
So I was like, I'm atheist, right? So I had a knee-jerk reaction. Yeah. So I kind of got to a place where I'm like, I've never really looked into this, right? I just went a knee-jerk reaction on faith, and I didn't really ever question it. So I kind of went into it, and I read the more left-leaning authors and stuff. I said, well, this is interesting, but it's not connecting with me, right? I looked at the political philosophy. I looked at, read Dawkins and stuff. I was like, it just doesn't quite connect with me. Even that the well-argued guys, I found some of the atheist people I just found so smug. The only ones I didn't find, I actually like some of A.C. Grayling. But I just still found that when he came down to arguments, I'm like, oh, that's a little smug, he has a cool book on the choice of Hercules or something like that, which is, but it didn't connect. So I read Edmund Burke, because I said, all right, I'm tired of the more left-leaning views. I'm going to look at the conservative views. And, everyone says Edmund Burke is the kind of conservative godfather or the kind of the conservative OG, as the kids say on Twitter these days. And that was a huge shift on my worldview, even as far as I was looking for in a romantic relationship with a woman. That was a massive shift. And I didn't expect that, right? Because it's Reflections on the French Revolution is more of a satirical work where he's, just showing all of the issues, and he's making all of these predictions of what's going to happen with the French Revolution. It was absolutely right. I don't think he expected to be laying out a political framework that, has shaped one party in America for the last, however many years. And, but his way he looked at people and society, that really intrigued me. And then I read his thing on, which I think was somewhat of a love letter to his wife. I know the early feminists hated it. about, intellect and beauty. And I was like, geez, he just is so aware of his values. That really shifted things for me. And that led me to Thomas Sowell, which was another big change for me. So to me, what it was, and conflict of visions is really big, is getting grounded in my worldviews. Being this, okay, I'm, as far as Thomas Sowell says, I'm in the constrained worldview, which is generally conservative. And obviously there's a huge spectrum of conservative views, from, standard republicanism to libertarianism to, there's out like the neo-monarchy type crowds out there. So there's a spectrum. I said, okay, well, I'm definitely in that camp. Right. And then kind of getting grounded in that and made me way more aware of my values. Because I think beforehand, after my dad had passed, and then even before, when I was working for him, I wasn't quite aware of the political games I was somewhat involved in with his his right-hand people. Right. Because, his kid is here. And so we have to, what are we going to do? And I was there to work hard. And, so it was kind of like, I didn't see that I was getting caught up on things. So for a while, I was very, very unaware of my values. And I didn't even question what I brought to the table, as far as, especially in romantic relationships. I never thought, I was like, I'm just average Joe, just bring this to the table. Right. I never like, it flew way over my head. But then when Burke, just whatever reason, he just opened a lot to me. He even opened, like, I'm like, I know Burke's in it, I'm like, I wonder, Burke on faith is pretty good here. He isn't, quite a theologian, but it's an interesting argument here. So that kind of shifted me out of atheism. And it's kind of this shift into like, well, pantheism kind of makes sense. I might have been reading the Stoics, but now it's like, oh, okay, well, Christian deism makes a lot of sense to me. So it's kind of this unique shift where but that has been important too in finding my values and being more grounded. So Burke, Sowell, Schopenhauer, those would be the big. And then Raymond Chandler's Philip Marlowe. Those would be the big shifts.
Excellent. Well, may I ask some questions about this? Because I'm super curious.
Yes.
If you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
So how far this is everything that I'm about. Like, I think we all as men at various points in our lives.